Hello, everyone. It is Thursday night. It is 8 p.m. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. And if ever there was a show where we have a lot to talk about, this is a show where we have a lot to talk about. We are on the cusp of a huge weekend in wrestling. It's not WrestleMania weekend, but in some ways it kind of feels like it is because there are a ton of shows that are about to go down between Texas and Atlanta, and we are going to get in them to them tonight. So folks, get ready. We got All In to talk about. We got Evolution to talk about. We got Saturday night's main event to talk about. We got NXT to talk about. We may even have Ring of Honor to talk about. Who knows, folks? It's going to be a busy hour. Get ready. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really need that Big Gold Belt.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being with us here tonight on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, Season 5, Episode 23. And of a lot of shows we've done, we've had some busy shows. This is going to be a very busy show tonight, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I got Damian to my left, and down there in the Lone Star State, where a lot of the action is happening this weekend, I got Giant Crab to my right. And I'm in the middle of your screen. I am Will. The three of us are here to run down what is going on this weekend in pro wrestling because there are major shows between Texas and Georgia. Atlanta and Arlington, Texas are the places to be this weekend if you are a pro wrestling fan, and we will get into as much of it as we can in the next hour. So, guys, I figured let's get right to the big one. The big show of the weekend, AEW All In Texas, happening in Arlington at the baseball stadium. Globe Life Field is where it is going down. We were talking about it last week, how they were on track to probably have more than 20,000 people. From what I understand now, we are definitely past that. We are past the 20K mark. So a sizable crowd showing up for All In Texas. We've had 2 years in Wembley, and now we're back in the States this year to do it here in Texas. First, Damian, before we get into any of this, are you going to be at any of this stuff going down in Texas this week?
I'm most likely going to All In. I'm working on some last second logistics because Arlington is about 40 minutes from where I live, and the traffic coming from Globe Life is horrendous. So I'm working. Let's see, Crab knows. I'm just working, trying to get in, but I'm 90% sure I will be in attendance.
Great. So next week we can have some in the building reports of what was going on there and how the live perspective was. So let's do this. Let's run down the card, and then we can kind of talk about what jumps out of this. That'll kind of be the theme of the night. So looking at All In Texas here, I'm sure some stuff will be added on Collision, as they like to do, because right now I'm only seeing 8 matches. That is too few for an AEW show. That is not the All Elite way, so I'm sure we will have more stuff added. But as it stands right now, we have a 3-way tag match for the AEW World Tag Titles. The Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, versus Jet Speed of Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey, versus the Patriarchy of Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. We have the AEW TNT Championship, Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher. We have a tag team match with the Young Bucks versus Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, with the stipulations that if Ospreay and Strickland lose, they cannot challenge for the World Championships for 1 year. And if the Young Bucks lose, they will be stripped of their executive EVP titles. So corporate stuff versus title shots going on in that one. We have 2 casino gauntlets happening, one for the men, one for the women on the same show. We also have the winner takes all to unify the AEW Continental Championship and the International Championship into the new AEW Unified Championship. Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega, in which I think is part 5 of their series, if you want to count all the prior matches in New Japan. And last but not least, the last 2 matches we have here, Timeless Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné for the AEW Women's World Championship, and a Texas death match for the AEW World Championship, Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page. That's your top of the card. Since you're down there in Texas, Damian, I'll go to you first. I think I know what you're going to say here. What's jumping out at you? Well, what is the most interesting thing? I know what my most interesting thing is, and I think we're going to agree on this one.
It's the women's match. You know,
Absolutely.
2012 me would have been super excited for Okada and Kenny, but this isn't 2012-13 anymore, and this isn't the Tokyo Dome. So not as looking forward to that. And I, not trying to sound like crab here when I say here's why I don't care.
Oh, wait a minute.
Here's why I only
Gimmick
care.
infringement.
Here's why I only care. As you all well know, women's wrestling will always have my heart and attention. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect this feud buildup to be anything. But at the same time, I'm glad we're having it because it's about damn time these two people actually got into the ring and actually got it on. All with the buildup, Mina notwithstanding, it's time. And that's probably that. And the women's gauntlet is probably what I'm most looking forward to. I got to admit, I wasn't going to go because if you guys remember, I originally was going to go to Evolution, as we said in our group chat. The minute it dropped, I said, okay, I'm there. Only reason I'm not there is because of a work issue. I would have been in Atlanta right now.
Okay.
But in case of work snafu, I will now be enjoying All In. So I'm interested to see, because, I don't really go to AEW that much. I'm interested to see if the live show matches what I used to see at the Curtis Caldwell Center a few years back when they try to get 5,000 people, 5,500. But I'm just looking forward to just seeing some good women's wrestling because for me, it's women's wrestling weekend as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. Crab, what jumps out at you on this card?
I'm only going to pick one match, but I think it applies. But I'm going to tell you that it applies to both. I think the Casino Gauntlet match is a good opportunity to make a big splash, get some new names in there, get some faces in there that maybe we haven't seen, some guest appearances, maybe some legends, maybe some guest spots. But I think that it's a good opportunity to kind of hard reset the mid card and start some new feuds and really just kind of jumpstart that entire thing from those matches, both men's and women's. They're down there in Texas, so there's a lot of good wrestling in Texas, and every time they've gone to Texas, they've definitely shouted out the legends of that territory. So how many Von Erichs will be in the in the men's gauntlet match? And since they're for a future championship match, it obviously, no matter who wins the gauntlet match, that's an immediate storyline that's going to go forward from there. And then all of the participants and who eliminate who and blah, blah, blah are immediate storylines from there. So it's obviously definitely not Royal Rumble, wink, 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 copyright, trademark infringement, but it's a Royal Rumble-like opportunity to jumpstart, reinvigorate the mid-card and get that whole thing going again. As far as the rest of the card goes, I'm actually pretty damn disappointed that the show is actually at 3:00. I love a good, show, afternoon show, but it's this Saturday and I can't make it. But the card looks really complete. Yes, every match has something on it, but it's a pay-per-view. And if you haven't been to Globe Life Field, it's a 40,000 seat baseball stadium. So, if not the match itself, the biggest thing that I'm looking for is what does that look like? In Wembley, they went for a minimalist set to cram as much people in as possible, just so that they can say that they had 75, 80,000 for a wrestling show in London that didn't have WWE on it. They went for a minimalist design in New York at Arthur Ashe Stadium, just so they can cram in as many people as they did for the first show, where they said that we got 21,000 people in the building for a non-pay-per-view, non-WWE event. So this is definitely their biggest show on U.S. soil, with 22,000 tickets sold. But what does the rest of the stadium look like? Because it's that's still a big damn venue for it to be technically only half full for baseball. So I really hope that they go all out or really All In, for the set design and stuff like that, because they usually don't do that. But I really hope that they just dress the stadium up, give it that big pay-per-view feel. This is the biggest show that they'll do. Well, definitely the U.S. this year. Who knows what they do in London later on this year when they go back there, because they did say they were going back there, even though All In is not in London this year. But this is their biggest show. This is their marquee show. This is their WrestleMania. And I really hope it feels that way, because in the card, it actually kind of does. I just hope that the rest of the aesthetic catches up to what the card, at least on paper, is putting down. So Casino Gauntlet Battle Royal, totally not a Royal Rumble match, is definitely what I'm looking forward to the most, because I think it could be the most all-around entertaining. But I just hope that the show looks as important as they want you to think that it feels.
Okay, right quick. Cupcake is back this week. Good to see you here with us, Cupcake. And Cupcake likes your tea crab. Your All Elite Wrestling Subway tea. I'm the Subway one from the NYC show.
It is. I got it from Grand Slam.
There you go. I think you make a good point. I would like to see this show glitzed up some, big entrance way, something, because they're going to have the space for it. The building is they're going to have to hide some of that building, either in the way they're shooting it or something. So why not put up something that'll conceal some of the space in there?
So looking at the layout on Ticketmaster, and if you know how a baseball field is shaped, one thing that's interesting about Globe Life Field is that there's a giant scoreboard that hangs literally over right field, built into the canopy of where the roof retracts over the stadium. The roof kind of moves back and forth like a slide whistle over the field, covering it. And there's a giant scoreboard in right field. So that scoreboard is should be implemented to the set design, because that's where it is. There's another giant scoreboard in left field in the corner, but that's really for people that sit under the scoreboard and right. They'll have something to see. There should be no seats back there. There's like 3 levels of stuff. That's all going to be blocked off. But I just hope that around home plate and in the infield and stuff like that, that's where a lot of the seats are going to come from. So they're basically cutting the stadium in half. But I just think that, like, I want it to feel big. Spend some money on it, Con. You got it. Yeah.
You've had the big crowd. You've had the crowd be the attraction. Now give us some spectacle. I think is the thing. Yeah. Especially since it's on U.S. soil. These are people that you'll be able to get them to travel again for a big show in the U.S. This isn't just the novelty of it's Europe, it's Wembley. This needs some extra sizzle. So yeah, some production values I'd like to see. I am with also Damian on this, that this is women's wrestling weekend. Behind Superman coming out, this is women's wrestling weekend for me. So on this show for me, absolutely, Tony and Mercedes is the match I'm most interested in. Evolution happening the next day. It's all about the women this weekend. The women's gauntlet, I think, will be really darn interesting. How the men's too. I think, like you said, that is a good opportunity to bring in something new or bring some people back or put some people in a position coming out of this show that they're in a different position elsewhere on the card. It's a chance to shake things up some with both of those matches. Now, since we haven't talked about it, and Lord knows I keep seeing this as a huge topic online from people, I'm gonna throw it to both of y'all. Lord knows, I know how we have feelings about Jon Moxley and this whole Death Riders thing. Does Hangman absolutely have to win the title here? Is this where you put the stake in the damn thing and kill the Death Riders angle? Because I see a lot of people saying it has to happen here. And the last couple of days, I've seen a few people start being like, oh, no. There's more juice in this. Shouldn't do it here. Got to ride this longer. Got to keep the Death Riders going. Damian, is this the place? Does Hangman win the title on Saturday in Texas?
Yes, he has to. And
has to. This storyline, and I've gone on record on this show and other places that this Death Rider storyline has taken too damn long. It's almost as if they forgot what the actual ending was supposed to be and have been trying on the fly to fit it into some sort of narrative. I've never thought I'd say this. I am tired of Jon Moxley, as I was a Dean Ambrose guy in the Shield. But I'm on the crab section now to say, you know what?
Still in my business.
I'm tired of you. Like, I'm 2 for 2 with Crab today. So it's one of those things where he has to lose. And when people are saying that, hey, this has more juice on the bone or more meat on the bone, where else do you see this going? Because if not Hangman, the poster boy, the golden boy of AEW, as far as babyface is concerned, with this babyface upswell, who else?
Swerve.
You know what? If this was anywhere else but Texas, I'd agree with you. But since it's in Texas, and even though he's a West Virginian cowboy, what better narrative than a cowboy beating Moxley in the Lone Star State? But in my opinion, for the story, it's time to pull the plug. Unless you're going to pull something random out of left field that cost Hangman the match. And I'm not even talking a dusty finish. I'm talking something even far beyond the dusty finish. I'm talking about Yokozuna versus The Undertaker casket match at the Royal Rumble, where the whole locker room had to jump The Undertaker in order for Yoko to win that match. It needs to be that level of extreme in order for Moxley to actually retain, at least in my opinion. But yeah, no, if not now, then when, if Hangman doesn't win?
You mentioned Swerve, Crab. So you're thinking it should be Swerve instead?
Well, it should have been Swerve 6 months ago. But Swerve is busy, and he's in a winner take all match with another random ass team that they put him in, with him and Ospreay, and they're facing the Bucks. Titles versus titles. So Swerve's busy, ironically. The one time that we need him, he's actually busy in a competent storyline himself. Unfortunately, it's all on Moxley and Adam Page. I don't know what Moxley's supposed to be. If he is a chicken shit heel with his goon squad, and it's a Texas death match, so anything goes and all this other stuff too, then he would look like a major goofball if he didn't win. It should be 5-on-1. It should be Streets of Rage, beat 'em up style. Everybody should be in there with like a lead pipe, ready to whoop
their version of Bloodline
ass.
Rules with Roman Reigns and the whole damn crew.
Right? Because if you're thinking about this, I don't see how Adam Page singularly versus the group that is the Death Riders that have a vested interest in seeing Moxley win legitimately comes out on this. Unless Moxley does what he should do and make Adam Page look like €1 million. Not even $1 million. He needs to look like 1 million Swiss francs. I mean, there's no way in any universe, any multiverse, that Moxley walks out of Texas with this title. He doesn't need it. He hasn't needed it. He's actually holding his group back by having it, because realistically, they should be chasing after the other titles and stuff. It should be a Judgment Day type of a group where we win, not just he wins. They already have that group. Christian Cage leads the patriarchy. But Christian Cage is the type of heel that should be at the center of his group. Me first, daddy eats first, and then everybody else comes second. That's not what Moxley's supposed to be doing. It's his band of thugs that are supposed to be thinking. It's a gang. It's even, right? Well, it hasn't been. And that's where people are getting tired of. The group doesn't make sense. The setup doesn't make sense. And for some reason, Adam Page has been picked as the savior that's going to save AEW. And he's not that guy. Which is part of the problem. He's not that guy. Since we're given a binary choice between Adam Page and Jon Moxley, the unfortunate part is that AEW does a damn good job of chasing champions. They absolutely stink on ice at championship reigns. And I don't think Adam Page is the guy that could take the belt from Jon Moxley and make it something more. I don't think that he's that guy that can do that. And they do have guys that can do that. I think Ospreay's that guy. I think Swerve is that guy. I think Kenny Omega's obviously that guy that could take that belt and do something with it. I think Okada's that guy that can take that belt, that can do something with it. Will Hobbs is that guy that can take that belt and do something with it. And I maybe prove me wrong, Adam Page. Prove me wrong, Jon Moxley. But as much as I hate to say it, I think we're trading in old grease for slightly less old grease, and we're going to get the same shit in 2 weeks where we go, okay, well, Adam Page has the title. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you're not going to have a viable champion, and I mean a legitimate viable champion, that where I want to root for this guy because I want him to win. And hey, you guys out there, because I know that I don't like Adam Page, and I haven't liked him for a while. But are you actually rooting for Adam Page, or are you rooting against Jon Moxley? That's the $64,000 question. And if you're not rooting for Adam Page, then what are we doing here?
Good point. Is it all about just ending Death Riders storyline, or just about actually?
And I have no problem with taking the Death Riders and shooting them, taking them out back old yellow style and shooting them and dumping them down the well. But to have Adam Page be that guy to do that, I'm not convinced that that's what I need to see. So I'm willing to wait a week for the next, Dynamite after the show, and have somebody come through with a the Casino Gauntlet winner. We don't know who's going to be in it. We don't know if it's somebody from CMLL, somebody from Japan, somebody from India, somebody from the moon. We don't know who's going to be in it, and we don't know who's going to win it. So I'm damn sure, okay with that championship title match changing on Dynamite, especially if the Young Bucks lose their EVP titles and we have a new sheriff in town, whoever that may be, that's benevolent enough to say, hey, well, Moxley, you don't get a day off. They won the belt, and they wanted the gauntlet match, Money in the Gauntlet, and they can challenge you tonight, right here live in, where are they? Chicago for the next couple weeks? So
maybe.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in Chicago a lot this month. But either way, the point is that I would be willing to wait to Wednesday to make that change. I think that Moxley versus Adam Page in a Texas Death Match will be entertaining because we saw what they did with Swerve. And unfortunately, Moxley, these type of brawl for all matches are his specialty if he has one. So I think that Adam Page can come down to Moxley's level. Moxley, and they will have a good match together. I'm just not convinced that Adam Page is the guy to take the belt off of him.
Okay. Guys, we'll see you in a week. We will be back next week, and we will see what happens on Saturday. Let's jump ahead now to that show starts at 3. All In starts at 3 p.m. Eastern.
And it was still in at midnight.
Exactly. And that's what I was just about to say. 5 hours later is the start of Saturday night's main event on NBC, and there's probably a damn good chance that All In will still be on the air at 8 p.m. Eastern when Saturday night's main event starts. So let's get to Saturday night's main event, because this is actually the smallest show of everything we're covering here. We just got 4 matches, so we can run through this quick. Solo Sikoa versus Jimmy Uso for the U.S. title. We have Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre in a grudge match, singles match there. LA Knight versus Seth Rollins. And then the big one that we know is all about, since they're in Atlanta, Goldberg's last stand, or as I'm also calling it, the last stand at WCW, Goldberg versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. Maybe we'll get something to add on SmackDown, a women's match or something, but that's what we have listed right now. To me, this is a one-match show. It's all about that damn main event. It's all about Gunther and Goldberg and what they're going to do there. I almost kind of wonder if they might open the show with it. Especially if All In's still on the air, that you open the show instead of close it with that. Damian, what are you thinking here?
You got to close it with Goldberg, because if this is his retirement match and it goes on first, you've deflated the entire audience for the rest of the show, because the amping is to see Gunther finally put Old Yeller down, like we were saying earlier. Old Yeller's going to get put down. Why not wait till the end for that? And you're right. It is a one-match show. And I hate to say it as someone who used to love Saturday Night's Main Event. It's one big commercial with a sprinkle of wrestling. So for me to even remotely get excited for it, even if I don't go to AEW, I still have zero interest in Saturday Night's Main Event. And we'll get to about Evolution, but that's another reason why I can't stand that it's happening on this day. Mm-hmm. Because you're shooting the dog in the head when it comes to the women because of Goldberg. So, meh.
So you think Gunther puts Goldberg down? Just beats him outright, and that's it. Gunther retains.
I think we have a inverse of the Survivor Series Lesnar Goldberg, where Goldberg squashed Lesnar in 2 minutes, and we all were surprised, like, oh my God. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I see the inverse happen because there's no way in hell that Gunther can drag, in my opinion, a 20-minute workman's match out of Goldberg at this point. Goldberg ain't one of them. So this needs to be a 5-minute sprint at the latest. So hopefully he puts Goldberg down.
All right. Crab, is that how you think happens? Do you think – see, part of me is like, I think it's absolutely going to be a 5-minute sprint either damn way. It's going to be a classic Goldberg match, just about what the finish is. And part of me still thinks I wouldn't be surprised to see Spear Jackhammer Goldberg wins the belt one last time. It would not shock me. Crab, what are you thinking there?
I like the idea of actually Goldberg going first because of just the counter program AEW, because theoretically that match would be going head to head on national television versus probably the main event for All In, which is an attractive proposition for WWE. Now, realistically, it should close the show, but are there any title matches on the show?
Or is it just Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso for the U.S. title, and the other two are just French matches?
Okay, because I'm not counting
Orton and McIntyre like closing just out of Randy Orton's star power, kind of. I don't know.
No. I actually think that opens the show because of Randy Orton's star power. I think they put on that, to open it. And then they go from there because it's got to be Goldberg versus Gunther in Atlanta. I'm not sure what the point is because I'm really having a hard time picking who should win, largely because there is absolutely no way in the blue hell that anyone would needs to see Goldberg again. He's 58, pushing 70. If he makes it 5 minutes, then he's slightly better than Ric Flair at this point, who legit is 99 years old. And this has got to be like his third retirement match too. I mean, WWE has given him the big send off at least one more time before.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense for Gunther to lose, but Gunther's obviously a company guy and done the job before. I just don't see it happening. But then again, Goldberg does win the belt. Cena takes it from him, unifies the title. I'm not saying it could happen, but that would be one way to get that title unification that I've been thinking that they should do. Just saying. And then, of course, that would get you Cena versus Goldberg one last time. And, maybe in a month, when is SummerSlam? 2 weeks? 2 weeks after?
3 weeks or so. Beginning of August.
3 weeks from today. Yeah. Let's talk this out. Let's talk this out. Goldberg wins in Atlanta, the match that everybody thinks that he should lose. He doesn't have to show up again until SummerSlam because Cena, who hasn't been seen in a while, has business with him. Unifies the title. SummerSlam is 2 nights. Cody, you'll see him later too. I'm just saying.
There's ways to do things.
There's ways to do it. There's absolute ways to do it. And then, of course, if you do have Goldberg win the match that he shouldn't win and go into SummerSlam as the champion this Saturday night, what does the headline say about All In? How many people are going to be talking about All In if Goldberg literally does the impossible and beats Gunther somehow, some way in his adopted home of Atlanta on the night that Beyonce graces the town? So with the power of Beyonce and Goldberg combined, I'm not saying that Gunther has a chance. Of course he does. But
Cupcake's losing it over here.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's crazier things.
She does agree. Cupcake does agree they'd be at Beyonce. If they're in Atlanta, they'd be at the Beyonce show.
I mean, you have the Hive, you have the Spear. I'm not saying that it's impossible. Now, of course, because what we all think should happen is a 4.5-minute match. If they make it to the first commercial break, it's a miracle. But a 4.5-minute match. The intro is going to be longer than the match itself. You know, they do their thing. Goldberg gets his one spot in, maybe a spear. There's no way he's lifting Gunther for a jackhammer, and then Gunther lays his dumb ass out. You know, hell, maybe even a heel finish with this guy Kaiser comes in and doing a thing as well. And then his son, runs in because his son's going to be there. He plays for Colorado, and he football spears him. Kaiser. We know what the match is going to be.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I keep going with the idea of Goldberg gets the win, but Seth Rollins is also on the show and cashes in on it. You just move the title to Seth all in one night. You have the win and you have a cash in, and the show ends with Seth as champion. That's how I could see it happening.
And that's also would be a thing that could take away from whatever the headlines of All In. Because
title change. Yeah, you have Goldberg beat Gunther and got cashed in on all in the same night.
Yeah, which would be the way that you would want to end that show, because end of the show with Goldberg celebrated in the ring with confetti on him doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, end of the show with Goldberg losing and leaving his boots in the ring doesn't do anything for the show in the continuity, because so what? It's his retirement match. We know what it is. And then of course Rollins coming in there and cashing in on him is a different thing. And then they can go from there down the road. And then, of course, the headlines would be Goldberg shocks the world and becomes the champion for 30 seconds. If you're really going to counter program, then why wouldn't you?
Yeah, if you're going to do it, do it. That's my thing. I mean, you didn't book this Saturday night's main event for no reason. So,
right.
Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, for sure, coming out of this. We've gone long in this first half. So let's get to our halftime, and when we come back, we will shift to Sunday, and we will talk WWE Evolution. Time to talk about the ladies' show that's going to be going on and everything involved with that. So stay with us, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Looking to get your brand in front of people who eat, sleep, and breathe entertainment? Big Gold Belt Media is the place to be. We're all about reporting on movies, TV shows, conventions, and everything in between. And we want your brand to be a part of the action. Partnering with us means your sponsorships get featured right in the midst of our content. Plus, we're going to hype you up on all of our social media, connecting you with an audience that loves discovering new things from trusted voices in entertainment. We're easy to find. Just look for us on Big Gold Belt on all your social media platforms. Don't wait, reach out today, and let's start building something amazing together. Your spotlight is waiting here at Big Gold Belt Media, BigGoldBelt.com.
Thanks for being with us here tonight, folks, on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We've been very busy talking about AEW All In. We've talked about Saturday night's main event. We've booked Goldberg winning the title and losing it in different ways. Now it's time to talk about Sunday night and WWE Evolution happening in Atlanta. The second Evolution show, bringing it back after all these years. So let's start with a look at the card and what they have offered up so far. 7 matches at this point. Maybe we get something more added on SmackDown, but that's for the pay-per-views they've been doing these days. That's 4 matches than normal. So this might be it. We have a triple threat for the women's Intercontinental title. Becky Lynch versus Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria. We have a no-holds-barred match between Jade Cargill and Naomi with their feud that's been continuing. We have a match for the WWE Women's Championship. Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. we have their version of the Casino Gauntlet. We have a battle royal for a world championship match at Clash in Paris with a number of entrants, including Nikki Bella, who's going to be in that. And I'm sure some old faces will return for that one, I'm guessing. A fatal four-way tag match for the women's tag team titles. So here we have the Judgment Day, Raquel and Roxanne Perez defending the titles versus Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, Sol Ruka and Zarya from NXT, and the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. We have a SmackDown team, a Raw team, and an NXT team to cover all the bases in that one. Then we have the NXT Women's Championship, JC Jane defending against Jordan Grace in Atlanta. And last but not least, I'm guessing this will be our main event for the Women's World Championship, Io Sky defending against Rhea Ripley. Pretty stacked lineup there between tag matches and multi-person matches and a battle royal. So the more I look at that's probably the card. I don't think they'll be adding anything to that because that's a lot. And I would think most of that they want to give time to because there's nothing that jumps out at me there. It's kind of like, oh, that's a quick match. These are all pretty significant matches. So, Damian, I'll go to you first since you wanted to be there in Atlanta for this one. And you weren't able to make the trip. I don't know, man. There's a lot to choose from here. There's a lot of good stuff. Well, what is your what's jumping out at you?
Firstly, inject all this into my veins, please. I am grateful that I get to live in a wrestling world where this happens. That's number one. Number two, I just thought of something while you were talking, Will, and under the radar, this Trish match might be her send-off match because reports have been coming out the last few days that she's ready to walk away fully from WWE. No more in-ring stuff. So potentially, we might literally get the passing of generational torch between Trish and Tiffy. So there's a little subplot to look out for. But let's be honest. The main event, which I'm 90% sure it's the main event, Io and Rhea. Now, will I say that Io's championship run has been lackluster? Yes, I will. But I can't deny that triple threat that had Bianca at WrestleMania was the best match of the weekend.
Absolutely.
And we've already seen what they can do on Raw because when Io won the title off of Rhea, it was on what we all thought was a throwaway match on Raw. And they put on an A+ performance. So if they're going to do that on a Raw show, what do you think they're going to do at a show dedicated to, at the very least, get all the female talent noticed, or at least more in the mainstream, and bring in potentially new fans, regardless of gender, to show, hey, women's wrestling here in WWE is alive and well. So the whole card for me on paper is way better than the first Evolution because there's so much top tier women's talent at this event that they had to shoehorn Stephanie McCool into the battle royal. You couldn't find space for her on the card. So you said, you know what? Let's get La Primera in the battle royal, who is my pick to win the battle royal. So I'm just looking forward to watching it. Again, I am disappointed. Truly, the lackluster sales withstanding, that I won't be there to watch this. And I really hope that this doesn't flop commercially because I don't want TKO to say, oh, look at the buy rates. They only sold 5,500 tickets as of maybe Tuesday. But I expect there to be a walk-up. Now, what shot them in the foot was having a Beyonce concert in the same city on the same day. Forget the counter programming. You had Beyonce's concert the same day in the same city. What is wrong with you? If you're trying to sabotage your talent, F you, because that's a punk move right there. And just to say, I'm going to counterculture, I'm going to counterculture AEW because the night before we're getting Gunther and Goldberg. The ladies were dealt a crap hand. But that doesn't negate the fact that in ring, this looks to potentially be one of the best shows of the year, if not the best show of the year. and I'm all here for it.
All right, Crab, what is your standout stuff in this lineup?
So for Evolution itself, Jade versus Naomi, no holds barred. I think that's an appropriate end to a hell of a feud. There really isn't a bad match on the card. It's just a matter of how excited I am for each individual one. But that's the one that jumps out to me the most, just because of like it's a no hold barred women's match. So how far will they push the envelope?
Right.
And I think that's not something that obviously you think about when it comes to women's wrestling. But again, I got to give them credit because this card has something for everybody. It's just that unfortunately, it's Evolution. It's a women's show, and that which is a damn shame because if this card were all men, we wouldn't be talking about how this is a show that needs to happen. We wouldn't be talking about how it's about damn time that that they get their due. But because it's women's wrestling, it's kind of like, well, yeah, Evolution. Look at how far they've come. That's bullshit. But I like the fact that it's an actual pay-per-view where it's not just thrown together as an exhibition. It's not just not even a glorified house show. But those like the Cruiserweight Classic, for example, it's not anything like that, where it's just like, let's just get a bunch of people together and have them put on a training exercise. Like, no, this is a pay-per-view with meaningful matches and continuity, and you're going to want to see and watch to see what happens. And even the Battle Royal for the World Championship match at Clash in Paris, which is at the end of August, there's stuff, meaningful things down the road. So, and of course, with another Battle Royal, that's a good opportunity to get people in there. Some people that you like, some people that you don't like, some legends, some how many TNA people are going to show up, how many more NXT people are going to show up in the Battle Royal. That's a place where they would absolutely insert themselves there. So, yeah, I think, Jade versus Naomi is the match that I really want to see. But the card itself, top to bottom, is pretty damn good. Good on WWE for that.
Yeah, I think a big part of what's also going to be the deal with this show is, regardless of even how anyone might feel about the matches or think about the build or anything, the idea that, there may not be that big of a crowd there, they're competing with a Beyonce concert, they got Saturday night's main event the day before. Take all that out of the equation. Once it's bell time, damn well these women are going to be fired up to put on a hell of a damn show, regardless of how many people are there, whatever. Because this is only the second time they've ever done this, and it's taken since before COVID times to bring it back. So this is long overdue. So no matter what that crowd is like, these girls are going to be fired up to put on a hell of a show. So I think the motivation is going to be there Sunday night to be like, okay, and I in one way, I think it kind of helps. The idea of like, it's going to be the day after All In, and that's, it's going to be such a big show. It's like, this is going to be something completely different. In some ways, I think that's going to work in its favor. That this is going to be nothing like that. It's not just going to be our typical WWE pay-per-view the next day. This isn't Fully Loaded or something, or one of their B shows. This is going to be exactly. This is going to be a totally different day. It's going to be something unique, and I think once it's showtime, that's going to work out in its favor. I think. So I'm really excited. That no holds barred match, Jade and Naomi, the way that feud's been going, that definitely is going to be interesting. Io and Rhea, I mean, what more can you say? Rhea's never beat her, so this is probably where it might finally happen. But then again, Io hasn't had a lot of, she won the title and she's had the big match at Mania, and now we're kind of like, okay, it's all right. Is this it? I kind of like to see a little bit more for her reign. But then again, ending the show with Rhea on top, it's very much how they like to do things. So that wouldn't surprise me. And that darn Intercontinental title women's three-way, Becky and Bayley, Becky and Bayley and Lyra, they have been I'll give them credit. It's taken me a while to come around on Bird Lady, but I'm coming around. And she had some fire this past Monday, and Becky and Bayley and Lyra, I think, is going to be a very interesting match. Lord knows they have been doing everything they can to get Lyra Valkyria over, and I think it's starting to work.
It's finally starting to stick. Exactly.
It's starting to stick. It's getting there. It's getting there. It's been a bit of an uphill battle, but I think we're starting to get there. So I'm interested. Evolution is going to be a very interesting cap on this whole damn weekend. And I hope people don't overlook it and start thinking I was watching wrestling yesterday. It's like, what was that?
That's my worry, is that it's going to be overlooked so much that we don't get an Evolution 3 after this. Mm-hmm. That's my worry.
Yeah. People got to put their money and their viewing time where their mouth is and support women's wrestling on this one and just give it some damn views. Hey, you don't got to open your wallet for it other than having that Peacock or Netflix subscription, depending on where you are in the world. So it's not coming with a $50 price tag the day before. So give it some views. I think that's all we can ask is give it some views.
Let me ask you this then. Based on that, because I'm looking at, we're on WrestleTix on the Twitter machine, but Saturday night's main event, which is, of course, just after All In, Texas, 7:30 p.m. local time. The current setup is for 13,000 seats, and they've sold about 10,000.
Okay.
If this is to be believed. And of course, as this was posted on July 4th, so this information is about a week old. WWE Evolution on the 13th. Current setup is 6,500, and they've sold about 4,800. Same building. And the building is the basketball arena, State Farm Arena in downtown Atlanta. If the marquee show for the weekend is WWE Evolution, it's Sunday night, 7 o'clock start. It's kind of the only thing on at that time. So there's no excuse. If you don't watch it, it's because you don't want to watch. It's not competing with anything. Do you think that they shoot themselves in the foot by putting this thing as the marquee event for the weekend for WWE by having it in such a crowded weekend in and of itself? Because for whatever they were going to do for Saturday night's main event, which we, can admit is obviously not a pay-per-view. It's not, it's really a one-match show. Mm-hmm. And then you have a really damn good card for Evolution, and they only set up for half of what Saturday night's main event is going to be. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that. Well, actually, what I am saying is Goldberg needs to be on the show. That's really what I'm going with. Everything that really comes down to it. Oh, no. I'm just saying that Goldberg needs to be on the show. If you want to boost ticket sales, you got to get the man in there. But in all seriousness, it seems kind of counterproductive for them to, on one hand, seemingly counter-program AEW, do that whole thing, because we haven't even talked about the NXT show that's going to happen during.
Great American Bash. Holy moly!
Great American Bash is going to happen.
We're closing with that
first half of All In, and then you have Saturday night's main event, kind of closing out All In, and then you have the show on Sunday that's kind of getting lost in the sauce, and I'm just like, what did they kind of cut their nose to spite their face with this one? Because you can't say we want Evolution. We're going to give the women, we're going to give the people what they want, and they want a show. But then you're telling me that this bullshit show for Saturday night's main event, which we admit is a meh show, really a one-match show, a one-attraction show that Goldberg should win, and you have a really stacked card, and they're setting it up for half the building. I just don't see the justification for WWE behind that.
We need a walk-up. We need a walk-up crowd, damn it, on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, go to the show, God damn it. But I'm just saying, just in general, though, no matter, even if it wasn't in Atlanta, even if it was somewhere else, just the fact that they seemingly are shooting themselves in the foot to counter-program AEW while screaming, "Diversity, bitches, look at us." Well, if you really wanted to do that, then you would have set up your own weekend around Evolution, right, instead of counter-programming AEW. It just, I don't know. And then, of course, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if the ticket sales are what they are, if they're only setting up for 7,000 when the very next night before they're setting up for 12, what does that say about what you think the fans want? So is it more important to placate the feminist, or is it more important to counter program AEW? Because it seems like we know what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
The goal,
For me, it was when I found out that it was a Beyonce concert the same night. That's what really got my goat. I'm thinking you're trying to build your fan base. You build your fan base for women's wrestling in this new era, and you decide to put it with the same night in the same state and city that a Beyonce concert's happening.
Right.
Tell me you don't care about tell me you don't care.
Yeah.
My one thought on that, though, when people keep bringing that up, though, is the Beyonce tickets were sold ages ago. People that were going to Beyonce had to lock in on that way before this show was announced, and there's 4 nights of Beyonce. So she's there the whole weekend. But that, I fear, Beyonce, that ship had sailed. That was already done. Those tickets went on, who knows when, though, probably back in the fall, if not before then. So,
no, but that's actually...
By the time they knew it was happening. But
no, but that's to the point, though. If you have $200 and it doesn't matter when you have it. If you have $200 back in February or March when Beyonce's tickets go on sale, well, it doesn't matter if you knew that Evolution was going to be a thing or not. You were going to go to the Beyonce concert if that were an option for you. And if it weren't an option for you, then you were going to do something else. But I can see where it was like, well, hey, I don't see people trading in their Beyonce tickets on StubHub for Evolution tickets is also the problem, because it's not like you are stuck with them.
Right.
But whether it was Beyonce and Taylor Swift or any of that ilk, it really still is to the point of it seems a bit disingenuous when I think about it, because especially since WWE has so many partnerships with indie companies now, you mean to tell me that they couldn't have had a women's weekend showcase with, GCW, with TNA, with whatever, and all these secondary and tertiary shows around town, no different than how StarCast does, not StarCast, but WrestleCon does for WrestleMania. But then they kind of shoehorn it in for Atlanta not because of women's wrestling, because of Goldberg.
That local tie-in, that was pretty much it. It's like we're doing
hometown guy has a wrestling match. No, yeah. Also, let's give the women something too. Sure, we can do that.
Well, that's a question I have too. How long in advance did they know they wanted to put Evolution on this specific day, knowing all the things they had to build around Evolution or work around with because of Evolution? Like when it was announced, I'm thinking, okay, great, Atlanta. And this is before I knew about Saturday night's main event was happening that same weekend. And Crab's right. They're bending over backwards to placate Goldberg. You're, again, shooting yourself in the foot when you're trying to bring in new viewership and highlight talent that not everybody may know about from either NXT, TNA, or what have you. Why? I would love for someone to come out and say, why did you pick that specific day and time?
Cupcake agrees.
Thank you, Cupcake. So let's contrast that then. You have the big show for Saturday night's main event. You have Great American Bash, which we'll talk about quickly shortly. You have Evolution, and these are 4 very different events, even for WWE, for all of the fans that want to go through that thing in Atlanta. Conversely, in Arlington, you have StarCast, which is going to feature a lot of AEW people. You have that started today, actually, with the meet and greets and stuff like that. Collision is actually on right now, which is one thing. The show itself is Saturday, and I think Supercard is tomorrow. So that's another thing. And yes, it's not a specialty event like Evolution booking the weekend. But it's still because of StarCast, because of the indie shows that are going to be in the DFW area, because of the other events that AEW is having. This is like a really big, inclusive AEW focused event. I mean, I saw some of the dark trains were wrapped with Adam Page, heading through downtown Dallas. So they really kind of made it their own, and good for them, versus the WWE experience in Atlanta seems to be a bit more scatterbrained, where we know they do a better job of continuity within their big weekends, because SummerSlam is 2 nights. WrestleMania is 2 nights, and everything. The Riyadh season for the show that they had out there, they had a week-long festivities of stuff and SmackDown and stuff. So it just definitely seems like Evolution's the third wheel, and it's a damn shame because it's the best card that they have for WWE over their period in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's not for lack of the wrestling. So that's, I think, could be the key thing here. Let's quickly go over NXT Great American Bash, since this will be happening directly against AEW All In Texas. So that afternoon at Center Stage, where WCW used to tape, we have Javon Evans versus Jasper Troy, the LFG winner. Ethan Page versus Ricky Saints in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the NXT North American Championship. Sol Ruka versus Izzy Dame for the NXT Women's North American Championship. Jordan Grace and the debuting Blake Monroe versus Fatal Influence in a tag team match. And the NXT Championship, Oba Femi versus Yoshishiki Inamura, which is a very unique world title match for them to be having to close the show. Feels very much like a match they would have put on their weekly TV. Once again, I'm really interested in what the girls do on here. I think the big thing is, Blake Monroe's debut for me is what I'm really interested in. We've seen Ricky Saints and Ethan Page a bunch of times already, but we're adding the Falls Count Anywhere stiff for that. So that gives that a little something extra there. But I look at this, I'm kind of like, I don't know. To me, this is kind of like just a bit better of an episode of regular NXT TV. This doesn't feel like a big NXT show. And maybe that's just part, just throw it on there in the middle of the day against All In and see what it does. I don't know. That's my take on it. Damien, what do you think?
I agree 1,000%. You took it out my mouth. They literally just said, let's just throw against the wall and see what sticks. Because this does feel like a glorified episode of NXT. Just knowing the build. Here's my issue. One of my issues. The trade-off when you bring up Julia, Roxanne, and Stephanie all in the same swoop. Mm-hmm. You deplete your roster and you still have a bunch of, I'll say green, athletes that are becoming really good pro wrestlers, which is probably part of the reason they left Jordan in NXT when the rumor was she was going to come up a while ago. Mm-hmm. Now you have Blake Monroe, formerly known as Mariah May, to draw up more interest on the women's side because they gave JC Jane a participation championship at this juncture. To be the Miz and be a transitional champion, in my opinion. But the men, on the other hand, I'm disappointed because the last PLE for NXT, you gave Oba Riley Osborne.
Right.
Decent match, nothing to write home about. And now you're giving Oba someone that wasn't even a full-time NXT worker and was in a tag team with Josh Briggs. No heat, no fire, no nothing. Just cool. This is a match. And we've seen Javon go from main event to show opener to middling mid-carder all in the same calendar year. And then you got Ricky versus Ethan. We've seen it. We've smelled it. We've tasted it. We sent it back to the kitchen. They brought it back up.
Yeah, wrap it up here and get it done.
So that's my thought process is just, what have we really been doing when we were so top heavy in the women's division? We kind of forgot about the men in terms of build and contenders. That's why Jasper Troy is already on a pay-per-view, a PLE, because he made an impression. So I'm disappointed. I'll watch if I'm not going to All In, but I am so disappointed on the fall off of NXT.
Yeah. Is there anything here, Crab?
Yeah, I think this is the show that NXT needs to have, knowing that All In is going to be on. This is just more spite from WWE. This is not even serious. Yes, it is a better episode of NXT, but realistically, at the time, it doesn't really matter what they put on. We know what the card for All In is going to be, and there isn't a damn a match on All In. that I would, turn off for anything on this card. I am interested in the Blake Monroe debut with Jordan Grace, another odd couple relationship that they have going on. I don't know why in the blue hell Blake Monroe isn't debuting on Evolution. Make it make sense.
She's got to appear there in some shape.
Mean,
has to.
It does not make sense. You put her on a throwaway episode of NXT against the biggest pay-per-view that AEW is going to do this year, and that's where she debuts. I think that she's bigger than just a spite match on a spite pay-per-view. She should have been on Evolution.
She's got to be. I'm sure
she should have been on Evolution. She should have debuted on Evolution, especially since we're talking about how Evolution has been, damned handcuffed or sabotaged or, Charlie Horse or whatever you want to call it. There's no excuse for her not being on that show, because realistically, if that match, Grace Monroe versus Flato Influence, isn't on NXT or isn't on the Great American Bash, is that much of a detriment? That's not the match that's going to make you watch the entire card. It's the match that you're probably interested in, but realistically, that's the match that you'll catch up on DVR later. So
this is the show that once All In's done, the next morning, folks will check it out on Peacock. That's
right. People will be watching YouTube clips of it, 5-minute recap matches on Twitter. So let's not pretend that, that Blake Monroe is the reason why you're watching the show. I honest to God think that they should have put her on the pay-per-view, have her debut on Evolution. And it doesn't make sense to have that match on the NXT show. I don't get it.
There we go. All right, folks. This has been a packed show, and I'm sure next week we'll probably just be unpacking all of everything that happened on these shows this week. So next week will probably just be the results show of everything that happened. It's going to be a very, very busy weekend. So, folks, get your rest now. There is a lot of wrestling to check out this weekend, and we didn't even cover Supercard of Honor going on Friday. It's just a lot of shows going on. So let me wrap this thing up because we are at our hour. Each and every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern is where you can find us here at the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, streaming live on X, over on Twitch, and on YouTube, live on all those platforms each and every Thursday night, 8 p.m. After the fact, the video I'm tongue-tied here. The feed lives on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. If you're looking to catch the show later, it lives on there on the Big Gold Belt Media channel. Of course, we also have the podcast version if you're looking for audio on all your favorite podcast platforms. So we have you covered in both formats, whichever version you're looking for. On social media, you can find us at Big Gold Belt, whether you're talking Instagram, X, Blue Sky, all that good stuff. At Big Gold Belt is where you can find us. And of course, last but not least, the website, BigGoldBelt.com, the home of Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. I mentioned it earlier. It is Superman weekend. That is by far the biggest movie dropping this weekend. That definitely has a lot of people's attention. Is there anything else that should be on our radar this weekend, Crab?
No. I mean, it's really all about Superman. That's the biggest movie that's coming out this weekend. The only other thing that is like kind of interest is a movie called Abraham's Boys, and it's about it's one of those Dracula stories, but it just, if you want something radically different. I haven't heard too much about it, which is usually not a good thing, but I know that that's coming out this weekend. But really, I mean, if you're not seeing Superman on the biggest screen that you possibly can this weekend, if that's something that is of interest to you, everything else has kind of taken a backseat to it. It's not even close. And it's either Superman or, next weekend is the Smurfs. Next weekend is I Know What You Did Last Summer again. But yeah, it's all about Superman this weekend.
Yeah, that is how I'm starting my Saturday. I'm seeing Superman, and I'll get out of that, and I'll be joining All In Progress to see what's up with that. So, folks, It has been a show. There's a lot going on this weekend. Watch what you can. I don't think people should be trying to watch all of this because Lord knows.
Oh yeah,
that is all you'll be doing all weekend if you try to watch all these damn shows. So either way, we will be back next week to unpack all of it, to see what happened, to break it all down for you. Like I said, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Hit that subscribe button to be reminded when we're going live and all that good stuff. The like button. all that stuff that gets his attention. We like that kind of stuff. So thanks for being with us here tonight, and we will see you next week, folks.
All I really